You're listening to the Prosperity Report Love and Money podcast. Find out what every couple needs to become a winning team in love and money. We bring you actionable ideas from expert therapists and experienced married couples, helping you stay happily married longer. Stay tuned until the end. We'll leave you with a tip you can start using today in our 5-minute activation segment. Now here's your host, best-selling author, speaker, and psychotherapist, Kanae Corder.
Welcome to Prosperity Report, Love and Money podcast. We are closing out the month of May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're closing out with a powerful episode on keeping the passion in your marriage. I want to remind you that a portion of every Prosperity Club membership sold this month will go towards Allstate Foundation's Purple Purse to help victims of domestic abuse overcome financial abuse. 99% of all domestic violence cases include financial abuse. For that reason, over 3 million children witness domestic violence each year. My goal is to empower these survivors so they can break free and create prosperity. My guest today is DeShelle Burrowes, a sex therapist trained associate licensed professional counselor, passionate about helping women, couples, and families by encouraging supportive relationships. DeShelle says, I strive to encourage intimacy with couples by defining the best way to effectively communicate to sustain and enrich an ever-changing relationship. DeShelle has been married to her wonderfully supportive husband for 11 years. They have 2 vivacious boys, age 8 and 5. DeShelle works with couples on how to keep the passion in their relationship as their life transitions. And because DeShelle also has this special niche, because she's had extensive years of traveling, she's kind of an expert on keeping the mental and emotional connection even when there's physical distance. So please join me in welcoming our guest today, DeShelle. Hey, DeShelle.
Hey, Kanae, how are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so glad you're here. We haven't talked in a while.
I know. Thank you for having me on.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate that.
So DeShelle and I are colleagues. We're cohorts. We graduated from the same counseling program. So I've gotten to know DeShelle over the years, and I appreciate her perspective, especially when it comes to sex therapy and keeping the passion, but also about how violence or sexual trauma can affect relationships, and we don't even know that's what's affecting the relationship. So we're going to go a little deep today, if that's all right with you, DeShelle.
That is all right with me.
Okay, cool. So before we go deep, I like to ask one question, and that is, what is your idea of prosperity?
My idea of prosperity is all-inclusive. Prosperity not only is the emotional well-being, but it also includes being spiritually fit as well as financially fit, along with the emotional well-being as well.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's important to have all of these aspects in order to be prosperous at all times.
Yeah, that sounds good. It sounds like holistic, like you're looking at the whole life and not just
You
one
have to.
aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely. You definitely have to.
Yeah. So as a therapist, and I had guests on in April that the husband was a minister, the wife was a therapist like us and social worker. And we talked about how when you think about money and success and prosperity, that maybe as a therapist, you're supposed to focus on just loving your work and not think about that part of it. And if you're talking about a holistic view, then money is clearly a part of it. And
Definitely.
yeah, and you've heard like you're supposed to love what you do and you're not going to make great money, right? You've heard that statement before?
I have heard that.
Yeah.
I have heard that. Yes. Don't believe it, but I have heard it.
Good. Yeah. And that's kind of where I was going. What are your thoughts on that statement in this industry? Of course, you know, I'm the money therapist, the financial therapist, so I have my thoughts, but I'd love to hear your ideas.
My thoughts are, I believe if you love what you do, the money will come.
Yeah.
If you're clear in your purpose and you know exactly where you're supposed to be and you're feeding that need that you have of where you're supposed to be, the money will be there. It's all about doing your purpose, God's purpose, and what He has planned for you. So if you are doing that, if you are submitting to that plan, the money will come. It does not matter what others say. Your needs will be met.
Yep, that is so true. Absolutely. When you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, and then you do attract the money to you. But what I find
Absolutely.
sometimes that when we don't focus on the love, I think we could focus on both the love and the money, like the title of this podcast. But when we don't focus on the love, we begin to get burnt out. And that also happens when the money is not there. Then,
Absolutely.
you don't love it as much. So I'm wondering, do you see or do you notice a connection between money and sex?
Absolutely. There's a connection. For many couples, most couples, when everything's going well, when the money's coming in, everybody's feeling like their needs are met. However, when there's a certain interruption of the money, absolutely there is a connection to possibly the sex is not good. The communication, it becomes off between the couple. Once the communication is off, that leads to people not having understanding. It leads to there being difficulties with money, possibly because they're not ready to explain. They can't fully explain what's going on with their finances. They don't know how, different parts of the couple may not have the capability of saying, I'm struggling right now, or, this is a struggle we're going to go through right now, but hey, we'll be on the other side. So when they're deep in the middle of that struggle, they may be so deep on their grind of trying to figure out how to get back to the money that the love goes by the wayside.
They forget.
And therefore that sex, you're no longer having sex. You're so busy grinding that all you think about is get up, got to get to work, got to make this money. I get home, I'm still working on my plan for the next day. I got to get up the next day, make this money. And you get into this vicious cycle where you no longer are checking in with your spouse. You're no longer saying, hey, baby, how are you doing? How was your day? Hey, baby, I need to be hugged. I need a connection with you as well. And your spouse is sitting there looking at you, going through these motions and is feeling neglected. At that point, when you do come in and say, hey, I want sex, when you do cuddle and lay close in bed at night, when you actually have a little bit of downtime, when those racing thoughts may subside for just a few minutes, you may bump them, with your penis at night, and say, hey, baby, I'm trying to get some. But your spouse is like, well, you forgot about me the rest of the time. I've been here trying to hold you down, but you on a whole nother plateau. So that's when there's a problem with the sex. Sex is not happening, or if it is, it's maybe haphazardly happening, where it's being done, but everybody's pretty much checked out. Except the one that's having the orgasm.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of like also what I find, the podcast that we both listened to with Jaya, and she was talking about the languages, kind of like how I have my money languages, she has the sex languages. And if you have different sex languages, but then you also have these money problems on top of it, then it really shuts down the passion in the relationship. So whereas one person could come to bed and just roll up and say, hey, come on, let's do it. That person may not need as much foreplay or, the build up. They might be able to get right in, but another person may need to build up. And I've read before that, I read this in The Female Brain. It's called The Female Brain. And the author said that women start foreplay like earlier in the day. So it's not even about like the 5 minutes before you want some. It starts earlier in that day. And the things that you said or did are going to affect whether she's turned on by you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so much a part of, I am a great believer in Mr. Campbell's love languages.
Yes.
So if you don't start off with that person's love language, for me, that language is acts of service. So if I come home and I'm exhausted because I've been listening to clients all day with their issues, but if I come home and my husband has cooked dinner, he has the kids fed, and he's done some dishes, I'm on and popping. I'm ready to go right on in.
Right. He's looking real sexy right now.
Absolutely. Baby, he is the sexiest man in the world. Absolutely, he is. So for me, I am that person that I do need That's the buildup. Me coming home, I'm
Yeah.
exhausted, but that will rejuvenate me into some action. That will rejuvenate
Mm.
me into doing some things,
Yeah.
as long
Hmm.
because that is my love language. So if he's speaking to me, communicating with me the way I like to be communicated, which is acts of service, then absolutely he has me all day. And I pour into him with, baby, how was your day? And he does the same for me during the
Hmm.
day. I may send him an emoji of some kisses and things like that. And he sends
Yeah.
me the same, and that's on those days when you feeling a little freaky,
Right. Right.
and,
You got to
and
set
that's
it up.
okay. So you gotta set it up. I gotta let him know, yeah, baby, I know you at work. You might be a little tired,
But get
but if some
ready.
things got to go down tonight,
Yeah.
and so at that point, he may come home and we may have a shower together to kind of prepare, to kind of get us ready for the night,
Yeah.
or do some things, he may get a massage or some things if he's not too tired, because I don't want to give him
Mhm.
a massage and he goes to sleep on me. I
Right.
got
Right.
plans. But if he's not too tired, he might get a massage to kind of get him hopefully. I will have the
Yeah.
diffuser on with some soft scents that we like, such as lavender, vanilla, things like that. That's what we do, in our
Hmm.
bedroom. So it's
Yeah.
definitely, you have to have the connection. You have to be connected for that, this with the sex and money, because sex can happen without the money, but you kind of need everyone to be on one accord, even if you're struggling. That couple
Yeah.
has to be able to communicate whatever accord that they're on in order for the sex to continue. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So we talk about the five love languages on this podcast a lot. And something that you mentioned where, one spouse might be feeling ignored until you get into bed and then all of a sudden now you notice me. And that could be either or. Many times that is the man, but that could be either or. And with the five love languages, if that person's love language is quality time and you haven't been paying attention to them, then they're going to see that as rejection. Even though you might not have meant it that way, that's the way
Mm-hmm.
they interpret it. And I've learned this over the years because my partner, that's his love language, quality
Mm-hmm.
time. So I absolutely have to put my laptop away. I have to put my phone away and I have to focus on him. Now, in the
Mm-hmm.
past, I've had relationships where we both have our laptops out and I'm working on my thing and you working on your thing, or I'm reading a book and you're reading a magazine, or, like we're
Right.
separate because we just need to know that each other is there, but you can do your thing and I can do my thing. Quality
Mm-hmm.
time wasn't either of our love languages. So quality
Absolutely.
time is not my love language, but I have to learn to speak that language so that I can make sure that he feels connected and taken care of. Because if we don't do that, it comes out later and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? And I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
it's because an hour
He didn't
ago
get
when
his
he
time. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It takes some awareness. You do have to pay attention to your partner to see. And I mean, of course, as easy as taking the love language quiz. You take the quiz and then you'll know your partner's love language. And then you have to learn to begin to speak it because, like I said, that's not my love language. So it takes a little bit of thought for me to remember to put my laptop away, to put my phone away, because I can work to all hours of the night or
Mm-hmm.
early in the
Mm-hmm.
morning if you let me. That's one thing that I get from him. The other point that I want to make is that a lot of times, couples will complain about the other spouse, but if you look at what that person brings to you, because quality time is not my love language, I learn how to
Mm-hmm.
put my laptop away because left to my own devices, I won't do that. So he teaches me
Absolutely.
that, and I appreciate that from him.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
I can agree with you. My husband is the same. He is a personal touch type person, quality
Mhm.
time type person as well. And so for him, it's not always about the sex, but it is about the connection.
Yeah.
It is about having that time, disconnecting. And like you, I have to disconnect as well. I do have to put my phone down. And for me, I have a TV in my bedroom. I know, bad girl, you just slap my hand. However, sometimes we have to turn that TV out, and I hate
Mhm,
it, but
mhm.
we do. And I do because that's what he wants. He wants my undivided attention. And I
Yeah.
try to strive to give him my undivided attention so that he feels like he's being heard. Now, there are times when I struggle because I'm so caught up in my own thing that he does have to give me a few gentle reminders. Hey, I feel like you don't love me no more, or whatever.
Right.
But it's all in fun. And then I have
Yeah.
to say, hey, okay, let me go home and give him some attention, make
Hmm.
him feel appreciated. So that way, we keep things on one accord in our marriage.
In the very first episode of this podcast, we talked about the five love languages, and we also talked about that criticism. So, what could have happened is he could have come and been critical, or you could have been defensive, which is another one of John Gottman's The Four Horsemen. So, you could have been defensive,
Absolutely.
like, what you talking about? I got stuff to do. I'm busy. I don't have
Hmm.
time to be right. But you didn't get defensive. You owned it and you said, okay, absolutely. And so,
Hmm.
talk to me about what couples can do to own when they're not creating passion in their marriage or even when there are money problems. What are some things that we can do to have awareness, kind of check ourselves?
I think sometimes you can check yourself if you're aware.
Mm.
But if you're not aware, I am an advocate for words. I'm an advocate for create that word within your family unit or your marriage that says, hey, get back on track.
Mm.
That word could be Sasquatch. So in the middle
Right.
of whatever we're doing in our day, if someone says Sasquatch, we know we need to refocus.
Okay.
We need to come back to, and sometimes I have to say it to, you may have to, I would have to say it to myself and say, hey, I'm getting off topic.
Mm.
I'm getting off track with focusing too much on the outside versus focusing on what's important, which is what's in my marriage. Because at this
Yeah.
point, like right now, I'm really trying to build this career in being a therapist.
Hmm.
And we are grinding. We
Hmm.
we're wearing so many hats at this point. So it is easy sometimes to kind of get off track and forget that, I got to put some time in here in my home front to make sure
Yeah.
everything's okay there.
Absolutely. And so it
Mhm.
sounds like what you're saying is basically listen. You may not be aware, but begin to listen. And it sounds also like there's a pre conversation. So in
Mhm.
the event we both get off track or one of us gets off track, here's what we'll do. So that
Absolutely.
sounds like prevention, like taking your
It is.
vitamins rather than having to take
There
some
you go.
medication.
Right, there you go. There you go.
Right.
And then making sure that, you may have to have that daytime once a month, even if you can't do once every week, have a date night,
Mm-hmm.
or once every 2 weeks, have a check-in time. Also have a check-in time with yourself. If you can, I am not that person that meditates. I'm trying to get there. And then I've been struggling with this because I'm so overly active in my personal life and who I am that I just can't quiet my mind to do so. But for some, they're able to quiet down and meditate and reflect on their day. Now I do reflect at the beginning of my day as I get dressed in the morning, what I'm doing for the day and as far as my career is concerned. But you also have to do a check in with yourself as far as your personal life is concerned, as well as your love life is concerned, as well as your family life is concerned. It's imperative that you still do check ins, and that includes date nights where you're able to check in with each other once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week, however you can do so. And even if it's not a date, but if you lay silently in bed, everything house is quiet and you guys can have this little silent, small banter between each other and just check in. How are you? How was your day? How are we? Just get into the nitty gritty because the marriage is just the two of you. And so it's
Right.
just the beauty in you only leaning on that one person that you're supposed to be with, that you're supposed to be, not the outside world, but you
Mm-hmm.
take that time to just reflect between the two of you. How are we right now? Are we in a good place? If not, how can we get to a good place?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an episode coming up next month, and it's with a woman who has been married for 46 years. And the title of this episode is Love Money First. And
Mhm.
the reason is because she focused on putting her marriage first. And one of the tender subjects over the years for her have been putting the marriage before the kids. And we talked about the vows for many people say forsaking all others. Now, of course, not everybody's vows say the same thing, but in
Mhm.
general, the vows say forsaking all others, meaning the partnership first and then everything else. But we
Mhm.
forget that somehow when we get
We
married. It's
do.
like the job becomes more important. You become married to your job,
Mhm.
become married to the children. And that could be either or, the woman or the man, where the children are coming first before the
Mhm.
marriage, or even outside your friends, your family. Yeah. And
You
that,
have to create it. You have to have a united front, Kanae.
yes.
Everything has to come from the marriage first, outward. You can't pour into your children if you're not pouring into your marriage. You can't pour into your friends if you're not in and connected to your family. Everything has to stem from this person that you said I do to. From
Hmm.
this, when you decided you were going to be with this person and be a union with this person, that's when all else fails. This is the person you need to be connected to at all times.
Yeah. Great point.
Hmm.
So I want to shift a little bit and go into the effects of trauma on a couple's relationship. I worked with a couple and the wife has sexual trauma in her past, and it did come up in their relationship. Now, they had gone to counseling before
Hmm.
coming to me to deal with it, but okay, so here's the thing. She had sexual trauma and he had porn addiction, and so there was a lot going on. Now, luckily both of those things have been resolved before they got to me, because I don't specialize in sex, I specialize in finance and love.
Right.
And so they had already
Hmm.
resolved those two things. But talk to me about what that can look like for a couple. It sounded like it was very painful and that they both were taking it personally.
Absolutely, Tanae. Trauma is such a dirty word, and it definitely is a dirty word in a marriage. It is so hard for two entities to come together just because you're not raised the same. You didn't come out the same household. Even two people from the same household don't have the same perspective as far
Yeah.
as everything is concerned. You and a sibling could share completely different views. So imagine meeting two people from opposite sides of the world, even from around the corner. They're going to have different perspectives. So
Hmm.
when you add trauma to them, you're not only trying to figure out the best way that you can communicate, but then you're also have issues whereas this person may not have the positive communication skills to say what's really going on. I've worked with some families, some couples that the one part of the couple did not even know the other one had trauma. They just knew that this person was withdrawn and didn't like sex.
Hmm.
But it's imperative for the couple to share with each other this experience. Say, hey, this is what's happened. This is what happened to me in the past. And this is what you're dealing with. So when I do withdraw from you, it's not because you've done anything. It's because I have my own issues, not because of something you did. It could possibly what I'm reeling from my childhood. It's imperative for you to explain to your mate what you're going through. So that way, when you're not feeling that love and all lovey dovey and want to be that couple, and maybe you to be withdrawn, maybe you need that alone time, maybe you don't want sex when they want sex. They need to know, not only do you need to know for protection of self, you need to let them know so they can protect their own heart when there are difficulties that you may be going through, the person that's
Hmm.
had the trauma. Because it's hard being in a relationship with someone that has had trauma because that person who does not, they may not know, they may not understand. So until you get the help that you need and they are there with you to understand, maybe through a marriage counselor, as well as you get an individual therapy, then that way they can kind of help usher you to a path of a great sex life,
Yeah.
along with them. And you can work through the traumas that you have. But if you're having trauma in your sex life, I first say help for yourself. So that way you can become comfortable. You can stop isolating. You can stop disassociating because that's what some people do. When
Mm.
people they're having relations, they may be outside of their bodies. They may not be able
Hmm.
to fully be involved in that experience. They may zone out on
Mm.
that loved one. That's just simply trying to show them love. And because they've not been shown love in this manner, or it was abused in some way as it was shown to them, there was abuse in that situation, they may not be accustomed to the right type of love.
Right.
So it's important that trauma in a sex life, it is a subject that absolutely needs to be discussed. And that couple needs to have an understanding of this is what I went through. This is what, and this may be why we're going through, why you're feeling
Right.
some rejection in our marriage, because, and it's nothing that you've done. It's just simply, I don't know how to love you as perfectly as I probably should, as
Yeah.
wholly as I probably should, because there are pieces made of myself. And that's
Okay.
just pretty much how you have to kind of deal with that until you're
Yeah.
able to work through those traumas, maybe with a sex therapist, and become whole and get the treatment that you need to
Yeah,
make
that
sex
makes
a
sense.
comfortable place for you.
I was going to ask you about that. So it sounds like individual counseling and also couples counseling, because there's the work that has to be done around the trauma, and then there's work that the couple has to do.
Absolutely.
So that's two different things, because some people may say, well, we're in couples counseling, that should be enough. But no, if
No.
there's trauma there, then that trauma needs to be addressed. Then the couple can address whatever, issues or challenges they may have. So what I heard you
Right.
say, there were a couple of things I just want to point out. So the discussion first, like there needs to be a discussion. You definitely need to feel safe enough with your spouse or your partner to say, hey, I have a past trauma that could affect our relationship. Now, that may not come up early on, but at some point when you begin to trust each other, that's a conversation that definitely needs to be had, because things may trigger. And then when it happens, the other spouse is not going to know what's going on. So having a conversation
Absolutely.
with your significant other sounds like a really great first step. And
It
then the
is the best
counseling.
step. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the
Mm-hmm.
counseling, we talked about the individual counseling, but also the couples counseling, because the individual counseling gets you where you need to be. The couples counseling, make sure that you guys have the support you need to get through it, because even the individual that doesn't have the trauma, they're going to be experiencing something. So we need to talk about what that experience is.
And you don't want to traumatize your spouse with your rejection. Now
Yeah.
you're traumatizing them when you're traumatized it's
Yep.
already. So
Great.
that's the importance of saying, hey, baby, I had this in the past. This is what's going on with me. This is why I draw back from you. You want to hug me before you leave the house in the morning. This is why I'm not always ready to have sex with them you want to. And you feel rejected. And I don't want to feel rejected, because when you're rejecting them, they're being traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
Their self-worth is going down. They're not feeling like they're that whole person that possibly came into that marriage.
Absolutely. And so the partner that has the trauma is feeling some shame, but the person who has, trying to get the love is feeling some shame. So there's all of this shame happening.
Shame
And
and inadequacy.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
doubt, right.
Mm-hmm.
And then they begin to doubt each
Absolutely.
other, and then they begin to doubt the love. And it's not necessarily the love that's in doubt, it's just the
Mm-hmm.
trauma that hasn't been healed yet.
And then this is where possibly the sex addiction comes in. Now
Mm.
he's going out and seeking porn, seeking to be gratified through other means, possibly having the texting conversation that work wife or whatever, where he's spending time getting the attention he needs from outside sources versus keeping it in the marriage, simply because he doesn't understand what's going on, or she doesn't understand what's going on in their marriage.
Yeah, great points.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit more about the porn. Now, in general, porn is watched mostly by men. That's in general. And then what happens is the woman feels like she can't measure up to whatever it is he's seeing on his computer or however he gets his
Mhm.
porn. So, how does porn affect the relationship? And how could it be used in a healthy way in a relationship?
To me, I feel as if porn affects a relationship. Like you said, it can be, but there are positives and negatives. For some, you're not going to be hard as long as those folks are on the porn video. She's not going to squirt. Every woman here will not be a squirter. Does
Right.
it mean that your wife is not having a fulfilling sexual experience with you? And it just means that that's not who that person is. Not
Yeah.
all of us appear in porn form.
Right.
So it's important that you take what you need from it and leave the rest. If it's more about maybe some type of technique, you're not used to performing oral sex, however, your partner says they like oral sex, you can watch a few videos on how to up your oral sex life in your marriage. If there are certain things that you want to try, such as different positions, you can watch porn videos for that, for the educational piece. But
Yeah.
don't look for it to be my wife's stomach is as flat as that woman's on the porn video. And she's
Right.
had 4 kids and has a few stretch marks.
Right.
And I think for a lot of women, that's what they kind of see. Some people may look at the imperfections of the people on the porn video. They may look at the stretch marks or, how unrealistic this whole scene is, the whole cinematography is of the show. Whereas others may look at it for the technique, However, you have to not hold yourself accountable as to that man on that video, stayed hard for 45 minutes. Absolutely, he did not. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, he did not. Unless you are on some Viagra or some other enhancement. They say if it stays hard for so many hours, you got a problem.
Right. No, that's editing, right?
Right. That's tons and tons and tons of editing. No woman is that wet all the time. It's just not possible. It's just not, Kanae. It's just not. Let's be real. So it's imperative that you say, hey, I can maybe get a few techniques off the porn. Hey, I may find a cute outfit or some inspiration in how to be sexier for my spouse by watching some porn. Yes, I might learn some good oral sex on how to do that, or a different position, or if you want to try a fetish or something like that out. Absolutely, you can go to that for that. But when you start to bring that in the bedroom and holding your spouse accountable to the things seen on video, that's when there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because no one can measure up to the stuff that's seen on the porn at all.
Right. And I know my men that are listening are probably saying, well, what about when women get upset when a man is watching porn, even though he's not saying, oh, this is replacing my wife or whatever. He might enjoy it and he may not be addicted to it, but it just may be something that turns him on a little bit. What about that?
For me, I don't think it's a problem if they enjoy watching a little porn. I myself watch a little porn from time to time, and I watch porn without my husband, and he watches porn without me. I don't think that it takes away from the marriage, but it can definitely add to the marriage.
Yeah.
And it definitely can give you something to talk about. If you're open to watching it with your spouse, it can definitely give you that connection. Like, hey, look at this video. Tell me what you think. It may be a great communication starter for you.
Yeah.
In the sex world and how to get the sex realm going for you all. If you guys want to try new things and want to experiment with them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. But I think as far as if there is no problem, if the husband can turn away from porn, if your husband is not, or wife is not so into porn to perform, they can't turn away from porn to get you the attention you need to hold on to their family obligations, their work obligations. If they're not checking out of life, I don't see that there's a problem with porn.
Yeah.
For me, there's a problem with porn when spouse starts to check out of life.
Yeah. Just like any addiction.
It's just like any addiction. Absolutely.
Yeah. When it starts to replace the things that used to be important to you.
Yes. When you're no longer wanting sex from your spouse because you're watching porn and you're jacking off, there's a problem. When you're no longer wanting to have to work, or you're no longer wanting to, or your work computer is filled with, or any computer in the home is filled with porn, but you're no longer surfing with Amazon or doing what you normally do, then there may be a problem with porn.
Yeah. And in financial therapy, one of the things that I have couples do, so I have these prosperity principles, and one of the prosperity principles is to suspend judgment. And I find that when it comes to this subject, porn, and one partner having a different kind of sexual drive than the other one, suspending judgment is a great place to start, because we are different. Like you said, everybody has different experiences, even if we grew up in the same household. Like my sister and I, we describe things that happen to us both in the same household differently. So, so things happen to make us different people. That's not necessarily bad or good. It just is. And so, like in financial therapy, where I'm asking couples to suspend judgment, it sounds like in sex therapy, there needs to be that same thing. You need to suspend the judgment and be maybe curious about your partner and how they experience sex.
Absolutely. And what is important to them. It is a lot like your process. It is a lot like the financial counseling. You have to ask them, how did you first learn about counseling? It's like you ask, so what did you first learn about money?
Yeah. What was your first sex experience? Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've talked about that, you and I, extensively.
Yeah.
So you absolutely have to say, hey, well, did you learn about money? I mean, did you learn about sex from porn? Were you looking at your older brother's porn? Is that where you learned about sex? Or
Yeah.
did you learn, or could you talk about it with your family? Did you talk about it with
Right.
your parents?
And for
You know,
many people, many women, but men too, because I have clients, I have patients that both have been sexually abused. And we work together. We had patients that come in and their first sexual experience is trauma, is sexual abuse. And so you
absolutely.
can imagine if that is your first encounter with sex, that you're not going to have a healthy idea of sex because it was
You're
tarnished
set up
from the
for
beginning.
failure, Kanae. You're
Hmm.
completely set up for failure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you don't
And
know. There's so many people that don't know how to build themselves back up from that trauma. And that's
yeah.
where the problem comes in. So then they go out into the world, they try to have these relationships, and they're not able to sustain those relationships. Or they're having multiple relationships over and over again because when it gets to where that person is like, I want to be with just you, I love you, they're
Mm.
running. They have that attachment disorder.
Yes. Hmm.
And that's what, because so you keep running instead of having and building a firm attachment with that one person who cares because of the traumas you've experienced today.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it happens so early, just like money, because our money processes are put in place around age 3, and at least 85% of them. So, just like money, you have some sort of idea of sex before you even know you have that idea because it's
Absolutely.
unconsciously imprinted in you. Now, of course, society does it, some things on television, in video games, and just on the playground, with kids.
Hmm.
So you have no idea all of this imprinting that's being put in. So being able to have a candid conversation with your partner to say, well, this is kind of how I was introduced to sex and not have to be defensive or ashamed of how it was introduced to you. Yeah.
That can add so much value, Kane, to your sex life. Being comfortable enough to have that conversation and said, hey, I had this trauma happen to me. I'm sorry that you see the bad parts of me from time to time. You see me trying to adjust, but I am trying to adjust. I am
Mhm.
trying to make this marriage work. Hey, let's go to counseling though. Allow me to go to counseling to fix me. And we work on us so we can build our communication skills up so that way I want to make sure I don't traumatize you, and you don't feel restricted or unworthy of the sex that you deserve to have in your life.
Yeah. Now
Hmm.
I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction. And so I have
Okay.
this question, and then I have our last question of the day. And so I'm wondering, so as therapists, we have to have that diversity and cultural awareness and competency. How do you address couples where in their culture or in their religion, there may be some taboo, like sex is a bit taboo because that's how they were raised culturally or raised based on their religion, that sex isn't good, it's bad. And so how do you address that?
First and foremost, you have to ask what are the goals of the couple?
Hmm.
What is the couple looking to get out of their marriage? And how do they define marriage? How is marriage defined in their culture? And how
Hmm.
do they define marriage for themselves? And once you're able to identify that, then you move forward with the discussion. So, what are your plans for your marriage? And you guys come to an understanding as far as
Right.
what you guys have planned for your own marriage, not what your culture does, but what are your own plans for your relationship, for
Yeah.
your marriage? How do you see yourself sustaining a marriage for the long haul?
Mm.
Because so many times now marriages don't last long.
Hmm.
That divorce thing is so easy. It's so quick to get out of a divorce now that people are jumping in and out of marriages left and
Yep.
right.
Yep.
However, you have to say, let's go into this already with what are we going to do? How are we going to work on our marriage? So if you have these ideas that things are yucky in your marriage that you've seen or you've heard about or whatever, have an open discussion about that. If it's nothing that's going to be harming to you, you might give it a try to see if it's something that you actually like. And what happens if you do? It's within your
Hmm.
marriage. Who
Yeah.
else should know about that?
Yeah.
What you do sexually in your own bedroom, it should only be between you and your husband.
Hmm.
So say that it is something, say it's oral sex and you were told that oral sex is sexy, but if it's between only you and your spouse, who else is going to know that you're having oral sex unless that's something you choose to share?
Right.
If that's something that you're comfortable with. I think all sexual relationships should first start with let's have a clean body. And we can work from there. Where we go
Mm.
from there, if we can shower together and you can get used to each other's bodies, let sex take you where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
but only where you're comfortable.
Yeah, great points. So there's a lot of connection I see between love and money here. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of connection between sex therapy and financial therapy. Because
Oh my
even like
goodness,
this
yes.
last question I just asked you about cultures, many cultures have an idea of money. And, some people think rich people are greedy or, money is the root of all evil or the love of money is the
Mm-hmm.
root of all evil. And so if you're coming into a relationship with that idea and maybe your spouse is ambitious and wants all the money in the world, then they're opposing. And so
Right.
you, like you said, got to stop and ask the question, like, what are our goals for this marriage? And so I have
Mm-hmm.
couples create, and we're in the process of doing right now in May, we're just started the marriage money mission. And that is when couples get on the same page financially, because that conversation is so important, just like the sex conversation, to say, what do you like, and how does this make you feel, and what turns you on, and what was your sexual experience. That conversation for money is super important too. So I don't have this in the marriage money mission, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the end of the marriage money mission, after graduating from the money conversation, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying the next step is you to go to DeShelle and have the sex conversation.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely. Get the finances together because you got to have somewhere to live and you got to have a bed to do it in. Well, not necessarily a bed, but
But yeah, a
let's
place.
say four walls, or and let's say as just someone to do it with. You can do it wherever you want to. Sex
Right.
is fun wherever you do it.
Yeah, yeah.
However, so get that money together first, and then hey, come see a sex therapist. Me,
Yes.
look, me for sure.
Specifically, right?
Specifically, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we're going to put in the show notes, we'll put some information to get in touch with you. And I want everybody to listen to the end so we can give our 5-minute activation. We'll make sure it's nice and juicy and keeping the passion in your relationship. But before we go there, I want to ask you my last question, which is, what is the best marriage advice you've ever received, or the advice you wish somebody would have told you?
Ooh, ooh, Kanae, that's a good one. That is ever changing. That is not, it's completely not the same as year
Yeah.
one, as year seven, because year seven is that funny year. They always say if you can make it to year seven, you're doing good. And where
Yeah.
I am now in year 11, almost 12. And I know as I progress, it's not going to be the same, but you have to have faith to go together because it
Yeah.
is different. Everything about you is changing. Your bodies are not the same as they were year one. Your mentality is not the same as you were in year one. Your emotions are not the same. So
Yeah.
if you allow yourself to have that growth, then you'll be good. And to be able to grow, open enough to grow with someone, not only growth for yourself, but to let that person grow as well.
Yes. Great point.
Hmm. Yes.
Awesome. I recently heard a quote, and I'm going to mess it up, but the lady said something like she has been married several times to the same person. And basically, that's
Hmm.
what she was saying. Basically, her marriage has been different. She's had so many different marriages, gets different,
Yes.
where when they had children, when they were single, I mean, well, not single, but they were together and it was just
Hmm.
them, no children. Then they had children, then they retired, then, all the different stages of life that they have gone through. It's really been a different marriage. And
It is.
yeah, the
It
fact that,
completely is.
so
I
that's
get
it.
that because I'm an older, with me being an older parent, I'm in my mid 40s and having
Mhm.
small kids. I had that life. I traveled. We traveled together. We're now in a different stage with the
Yeah.
kids and trying to figure out things and trying to figure out how to still find our time, how to
Hmm.
still, not make it so much about my boys, but how
Yep.
to say, hey, we need time too without being exhausted, without having that one eye open, because we're
Yep.
about to fall asleep. And just talking about the end of our day today, it can be that bad. So
Right.
we're still trying to find that time. It is so important to
Hmm.
realize you will have a different marriage every 5 years, every whatever it is for you, for sure. But stick and stay. That's what's important
Absolutely.
today is that you stick and stay. I have an aunt and uncle, they've been together over 53.
Wow.
And I couldn't even imagine that they've been together that long. And
Yeah.
I've seen them a lot younger than their oldest daughter, but I've seen them go through so much in their marriage, but they're still so strong in it.
Hmm.
I talk to them. I'm close to the aunt to my, and we still talk. We talk about sex and their sex life, and I'll kind of try to bring things to them, and she laughs. at me, trying to get her to try new things with him. But now they have some challenges just with their own physicality.
Yeah.
And so, but, I'm letting them know it's still a chance. You still can be active. You still got things you can be doing to please each other.
Right.
And so just to keep it going, but to be married for 50, that is a blessing in itself. So that's definitely what keeps me working in my own marriage and saying, if they can do it, we definitely can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all the good tips and advice. And
thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate you. I love you dearly as my next sister. I love you so much. We've had so many deep discussions about love and money and sex and trauma through all our multiple connections. And I just appreciate you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. And thank you so much. And I do know that to be true. And I always feel so special when I'm around you. So I appreciate you always showing me love.
Oh, thank you. I hope I show everyone love. That's part of that sex thing, girl. I'm not trying to have sex with you, but I just want to love on you.
I've seen you work that hospital. You all over.
I am.
All over the place. Everybody knows you. They know your energy before you even enter the room. They know your energy is coming.
They do. It's so funny because I was trying to ask them, should I be on meds? And they're like, girl, you were on meds, should be floating. So they're like, yeah, no for you and meds. No, you're good. Yeah.
I know.
So thank you again so much, Tanae, and I love you so much.
You're welcome. Love you too. You definitely helped me make it through at the hospital because that was not my scene. But
but you made it through, and
I did. But that was the hardest job I ever had. But I loved the patients. Like I loved them so much. It was just all the other stuff that goes with working at a hospital.
It was the politics of it all. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't do politics very well. My free spirit just couldn't settle.
Yeah, we can't ground you. We couldn't ground you. Absolutely. No, we couldn't chain you down. You had to be free.
It's time for 5-minute activation, a quick financial therapy session to get you activated and on your way to increasing the love and money in your marriage. So can I get 5 minutes of your time? Just 5 minutes for a financial therapy activation. Does money bring you stress and anxiety? Well, you're not alone. Many people cite money as the cause of their stress and anxiety. Today on 5-minute activation, I want to point out 3 areas where I see the most stress and anxiety from patients: earning, spending, and investing. Now, here's some ways to reduce stress and anxiety in these areas. When it comes to earning, you need to know your numbers. So what does that mean? Know what's coming in and what's going out. I call that a spending plan. So have a plan for your money. And the spending plan is like your ticket to freedom because it tells you when the bulk of your money is coming in and when the bulk of your money is going out, which will allow you to say no to yourself or others when you need to, and know exactly when you can say yes. Now, the other way is to have a prosperity plan. And when you have a prosperity plan, that encompasses your future goals. The idea is that you stay focused on your prosperity plan. Doesn't matter what the Joneses are doing. Don't worry about that. Just stay focused on your prosperity plan. Let's move on to spending. When you do that, you determine your needs from your wants, regardless of what anybody else is doing. Put your needs before your wants. Spend money on your needs before you spend money on your wants. And I'll tell you in our next 5-minute activation exactly how to differentiate. Now, here's another area where I see a lot of anxiety, and that's investing. The first step is to determine if you're a trader or if you're an investor. If you're an investor, you're not trading on a daily basis or a regular basis. So you're just going to hold on to most of what you purchase. And the market goes up and the market goes down. And that brings a bit of anxiety, but at least you know it's going up and it's going down. So you don't have to get so nervous because going down can sometimes benefit you. The key is to know. Do some education around investing. Maybe hire a professional that can help you. Partner with them. You don't have to turn everything over to them. You can partner with this professional and allow them to guide you, not necessarily do it for you, but give you enough information to allow you to do it for yourself. My mom told me making decisions for yourself does not mean making decisions by yourself. So take that little nugget and apply it to many areas of your life, especially investing. And if you need a professional to help you make great decisions around investing, then hire somebody you can trust. Maybe get a referral. So let's recap. Earning, know your numbers. What's going in, what's coming out. We call that a spending plan. Also know your numbers around your future goals. We call that a prosperity plan, and focus on your prosperity plan, not anybody else's. Next, in the area of spending, determine your needs from your wants. Buy your needs first, or spend money on your needs first, and then on your wants. Next, investing. Hire a professional to help educate you. Get as much education on whatever you need in order to increase your investments, but also know whether you're an investor or a trader. Know the difference and act accordingly. So that's our 5-minute activation for today. I'm so excited about our next 5-minute activation in the episode coming up June 1st. So I hope to see you there. Keep sending in your questions so I can answer them right here during our 5-minute activation segment. This episode was brought to you by Prosperity Club. Want more help creating your prosperity plan? There are 2 ways. You can join for free and get weekly videos and blog posts in our private Facebook group. Just go to KeneQuarter.com/Facebook. Or if you want 12 prosperity lessons plus insight and accountability, you can go to KeneQuarter.com/prosperity-club. We'll help you build your very own prosperity plan for only $97. That's about $8 per lesson. You'll get 12 prosperity lessons plus insight and accountability emails to encourage you along the way. Your prosperity plan is important. So join the Prosperity Club so you can reach your heart's desire. Go to KeneQuarter.com/prosperity-club. I'll see you in the club. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you want more love and money conversations, subscribe to this podcast. Also, tell your friends about us. I'll see you next episode. But in the meantime, head on over to presidentiallifestyle.com for more tips, tools, and resources. And go ahead and leave us a comment if you like. We'd love to hear from you. This show is not to replace professional counsel. The best advice comes from a professional you know. The topics discussed in this podcast are general in nature and are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We encourage you to meet with a professional to discuss your specific situation, whether financial or therapeutic. That's all for now. I'll see you sooner. Remember, no matter what anybody ever tells you, you can have wealth in all of its forms. Believe it, and you will soon see it.